Hi, Carla. My name's Larry Kopelman, and I was introduced to music in the fifth grade. I'm from East Bank, and I went to East Bank Elementary, and my teacher, Mrs. Cochran, said one day, Bob Laurent, who teaches band at East Bank High School, is coming over to teach people who would like to play an instrument. So he's coming next Thursday. If you'd like to play, we'll do it for 45 minutes. And someone in the class, it might have been me, said, well, what do we do if we don't take band? And she said, we're going to have silent reading. And the entire class said, I think I'll do the band. So I went home, told my mother I wanted to play in the band. She said, well, what do you want to play? And I said, saxophone. So she had a friend that had said they had a horn of some type. And so I came home the next day, here's this case, and I open it up, it's a French horn. I said, Mom, this isn't a saxophone. She said, well, it's a horn. You want to play in the band? I said, yeah, but I really want to play a saxophone. So she got me a saxophone. And so that was the early career, and played in junior high and in high school. And then
what year did you graduate?
Graduated in 1967, and Bob Laurent was my band director in the 10th grade.
Okay.
And then he went on to Charleston High. And then Tom Reed came as the band director for the next 2 years. So when I went to WVU, I chose engineering. And you couldn't be in engineering and be in the band because there were so many labs in the afternoons, physics lab, chem lab, that kind of thing. So in the ninth grade, I was enamored with the Beatles. And I asked Mr. Nunley, the junior high director, band director, if he would write some songs for a saxophone, a clarinet, a trumpet, a trombone, and we did I Want to Hold Your Hand, She Loves You, and one more Beatles song, and it was successful. So my very first band was this band that I put together, and we were invited to do a birthday celebration at the Pioneer Inn. Dolores, the daughter of the lady that owned the Pioneer Inn, was turning 16 maybe. And so our band had 4 black singers and the complement of horns. And she said, now how much do you charge? And I said, $20. There were like 11 or 12 of us. So we were going to make, not a lot of money, $1.50 a piece or something. So I remember we actually practiced a few soul songs in 1963. And so she said, can you play Happy Birthday? And I said, So Ronnie Hughes was in the group. He also taught band at the South Charleston Middle School. And Ronnie said, it's in C. So his dad was a band director. Now to me, I was so dumb, I said, okay, that means I start on C. Because he's a B-flat instrument with a clarinet, and so was I with a tenor sax. So I started on C, and he knew to start on G. And it was just horrible. And we couldn't figure it out. And so finally the lady comes out and says, can you sing it? So we sang Happy Birthday. It's sort of my first memory of playing professionally for $20, and then did some little bands. And so in high school, I started a band called the Pagans, but I moved over to the Chimes at the Cedar Grove, and then went to play with the Royals in Malden. Then I went off to WVU, and they still had horn bands in the 67, 68. And so we were playing Wilson Pickett and Otis Redding and all kinds of...
Did you play by ear or...
Yeah. The way you learn a song in a band like that, you put your ear down and you listen. You first go to the artist that you really like, and you listen to the way they do it. And then if you can improve it a little bit, But some songs have to be played precisely. And then other songs you can have some leeway.
Yeah.
So you actually listen, and you listen for the sax part and the trumpet part, and everybody gets, and so you just write down and make notes. There's no music. You don't draw out music unless you're really talented. And some people did, but for the most part, you just put down some basic notes that you have to hit, and then you learn when to hit them. And so I played with the band called Jada and the Hunters. We had a singer named Jada Hunter. She went on to be a high school principal. She's since retired. Fabulous singer. Her signature song was To Serve with Love. Wow. All these memories are coming back.
That's okay.
But what was interesting was in the year either 69 or 70, I can't remember right now, A lot changed. The Vietnam War and the ruckus and you know that went on with that. Music changed. The horn bands went to the side, and along came Cream and Vanilla Fudge and Steppenwolf, and then came some acid rock and then the hard rock. And so I put my horn in the closet, like 1969, and didn't bring it back out until I would go to Esquire's reunion dances. There's a band in Charleston called the Esquires, and famous for the 60s. And I never played with the Esquires. But one of the fellas died that was an original. His name was Larry Castleberry, and he played tenor and bari sax.
Okay.
And Butch Evans was a friend of mine. Carl Nessman was a friend of mine. They knew that I had played, and so they were going to disband. And they came to me and said, "Do you think? I mean, you played back in the '60s. Do you think you could play?" And I said, "I don't know. I haven't played for 20 years."
Yeah.
1991. And so we got together in the garage of David Nessman's garage. He was the son of Carl Nessman. And I got out the horn. It was terrible. I couldn't play hardly. I could make some notes, but and I knew some of the songs as we played, like Get Ready and other songs. And so we decided we'd give it a try. So right after that, I was like in May of '91. I took the horn to the beach with me, and it took 6 months to get back the dexterity and the embouchure and to feel like you could make a decent note and to play a decent song. But we ended up playing a reunion dance, and it all came together, and I've been with the Esquires since 1991.
So tell me about your best musical memories. I see you have some pictures.
Well, yeah, playing with the Esquires is always fabulous because the enjoyment comes from seeing everyone having fun and dancing and so forth. So it was about 1992 or 3, I got the opportunity to go to Russia with the Russia-West Virginia Foundation. They were bridging. This is when the Soviet Union actually started toppling in '89 and completely fell into the chaos and disarray. And the Soviet Union, as you know, was disbanded in 1991. So I got to go over in '92 on a tour, and we were just playing with the Esquires, and I got to meet some fabulous people. The fellow that was our host was the director of parades and pageantry for the Russian Federation. And so he had 2 kids, and they came to the United States because we were doing exchanges. We were doing primarily educational exchanges, bringing kids over from Russia and taking kids to Russia. And then we did governance, and we did medical and political exchanges as well. And so I got invited to be on that board, to be a board member of the Russia-West Virginia Foundation. And so he came over and he heard the Esquires, and he invited us to go to Russia. And the Esquires band went to Russia, and we played in Moscow at some bars, and then we played a junior high, and I'll never forget this. At this junior high in Moscow, they performed for us. And we're talking 8th graders, and they sang in perfect English, Almost Heaven, West Virginia, and it brought tears to our eyes because they did that as a tribute to us. And then we played some songs with them. We played a song, the Esquires band played a song called Moscow Suburb Nights, and I'm not a singer, but it went da 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 da. Have you ever heard that song?
No.
Okay, well it's a Russian classical song, and so we learned to play it, and we did it slowly at first, and then we got a little faster, and then a little faster, and we ended up, and we had a good time doing that. And so we did a performance for the Russian Federation's presidential orchestra in an auditorium in Moscow, and they liked us. And so what leads me to these pictures is I got invited with the rest of the Esquires, but the majority couldn't go. So it was me and Clay McGee and David Nessman and a few others got to go on a cruise boat up the Dnieper River in the Ukraine in 1997. We flew from Moscow into Odessa. We went down into the Crimea where the Soviet Union had their submarines. They were all rusting hulks. And then from there, Sevastopol was the name of the city. And it was like 2.5 million people when Russia was there with the submarines. And once they left, it was like 600,000. So it's a city of 2.5 million down to 600,000 people selling beer on the streets. So we got to see all that. We hopped on a cruise boat, and we went up the Dnieper River. It's a very big river, and it goes from Odessa to Kiev. You know, the Ukraine's under siege right now. The Russians have invaded Ukraine. But in any case, we did this cruise boat along with a pared down Russian Federation Presidential Orchestra. There were only 40. So they entertained us at various places. For example, here we are at one of the cities up on the river, and this is Pavel Sannikov leading the Russian Federation Orchestra at a performance for the Ukrainians. And it was fabulous. Well, before I went, my friend told me, said, Larry, there might be a time when you would have an opportunity to play a tenor saxophone. Bring a mouthpiece. So I brought a mouthpiece and a reed with me when I went on this trip. So it was Wednesday. I'll never forget it. We'd started the trip on a Saturday. It was Wednesday, and he came up to me and he says, you want to play tonight? And I said, what am I going to play? He says, well, why don't you play that Moscow Suburb Nights? You know it. And I said, well, sure, because it's a very simple song. It's in C. It's da 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 da. So it's not very difficult. So he said, yeah. And then that evening, he brought me off to the side and he said, let me show you a picture. And I said, why? And he said, well, do you remember, and we played, I forgot to mention this, when we were in Russia with the Esquires, we played on national television. And we played with a group called Phonograph. And Sergei Zhilin was the keyboard player and the leader of the band. So here he is when Yeltsin first took over and Bill Clinton went to Moscow. And here's Bill Clinton and Sergei and Yeltsin. Can you see the picture? He's playing a Selmer, Paris, Mark VI, black lacquer saxophone. So here it is Wednesday, we're on the boat. I'm in front of the Presidential Orchestra, and he hands me the very same saxophone that Bill Clinton played. And that's Pavel Sannikov, an extremely handsome 6'4" conductor of the Presidential Orchestra. So they hand me this saxophone and he says to me through an interpreter, he says, what would you like to play? And I said, well, Moscow Suburb Nights is good. And he said through the interpreter, well, the key is B flat. And I said, oh, well, I know it in C. And he says, well, we normally play it in B flat through the interpreter. And he doesn't have a smile on his face. He's halfway serious. And I said, you know, in the famous words of Spock, that international traveler, sometimes the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. And he said, you're right. We can play it in C. So here I am playing Moscow Suburb Nights, backed up by the Presidential Orchestra of the Russian Federation, playing the Selmer black lacquer tenor saxophone that Bill Clinton played. And is that my greatest moment? It probably is my greatest moment in music, and I just I love that. So that's pretty much it. Playing with the Metro Band has always been fantastic. We do good.
So tell me, what advice would you give to a young musician just starting out?
Choose what you want to do. Choose the instrument you want to play, because I'm a believer that if you do what you enjoy, you'll be good at it.
Do what you love.
And do what you love. And if you're good at it, then you'll have fun and it doesn't go away. And that's what I would do. I'd just have fun and do what you can do.
That's an awesome story. Thank you,
You're welcome.
Larry.
You're welcome.